Khmer Rouge leaders are currently on trial for genocide by a UN-backed tribunal. The tribunal is facing serious roadblocks, including Tuesday's resignation of UN Judge Mark Harmon. The resignation, said to be made for personal reasons, coincides with Cambodia's failed arrest of two key suspects in the ongoing trial that he named for indictment. VOA sought Khmer spoke with U.S. Ambassador of War Crimes Stephen Rapp and has this interview.
Yes, Ambassador Stephen Rapp, you visited Cambodia many times in the past, and United States gave a lot of fund to the Cambodian court at the tribunal, the UN-backed court. So what is your latest observation and assessment for it?
Well, there's a lot of very positive things that have gone on in the court, and I was just there last week to see the beginning of the hearing of the appeal in case 2-1, where Nuon Chea and Khieu Sapan were convicted of crimes against humanity and war crimes and are now challenging that conviction before the Supreme Court chamber. There was immense interest in Cambodia about that case, about the crimes alleged and for which they were convicted, which basically concerned the beginning of the Khmer Rouge regime, the evacuation of the cities in April of 1975, and the killing of anyone that was associated with the government in Cambodia between 1970 and 75. Those soldiers and ministers and others were executed on sight. But now we have also the case 2-2 in trial and going well with testimony about the really massive crimes of the Khmer Rouge, the detention facilities in which tens of thousands of people were tortured into false confessions and killed with pipes to the back of the head, other places where people were worked to death, other situations in which people were starved and mistreated, leading to the killing of almost 1.7 million people, one of the worst crimes of the 20th century, and a quarter of the population of Cambodia. Evidence is now coming forward on that in this second phase of the trial involving these two surviving leaders. On the other hand, the investigation of several other suspects has been blocked in the past, is now proceeding to some extent, but the question of whether that investigation will be allowed to be completed fully and judicial orders entered remains a challenge for the court.
Right, you seem to be satisfied with case 002, but how about case 003 and 004? As you may know, that Mark Harmon, that's the judge from the United Nations, resigns yesterday. So what will it happen to the tribunal process in the future?
Well, Mark will be succeeded by another judge, almost certain to be the reserve judge, a German national, Michael Bolander, who's already been confirmed in his reserve position by the Cambodian government, and the United Nations is now asking him to be made full judge. And I spoke to him in Europe last week. He's ready to go, and Mark has agreed to stay on into the fall in the hope that there can be no break between his tenure and Judge Bolander's. It's been possible for Judge Harmon to make great progress in the investigations. And I understand case 3, which involves one individual, one surviving individual, the former head of the Navy, Mi Mut, is a case that involves some 10 crime sites. But case 4, which involves at the moment, there's Im Chime, who's been named. There are 2 other individuals that are being investigated in that. That involves some 55 crime sites, and the necessity of substantial investigation. During the course of the last more than 2 years, Judge Harmon, with the cooperation of the Cambodian government, has been able to carry out extensive investigation. The challenge arose late last year when it was necessary for him to confront the accused with that evidence, and they refused to come in and respond. and the government did not formally arrest them and bring them in. We're not talking about detaining them, because to detain anyone there would have to be both Cambodian and international judges in agreement.
Yeah.
But just bringing them in to be confronted was blocked, and eventually Judge Harman proceeded in absentia and had counsel appointed for them, and so the process is moving forward, but it's been hobbled by their non-cooperation. There is, by the way, a third accused who is cooperating and is working through this process. But what's required in this court, and of course it's a balance between Cambodian and international judges, and there's a majority of Cambodian judges, as was agreed, but it's required that independent investigations take place, and then decisions need to be made by all of the judges of the court.
So that means those people, those suspects, have a better chance to present evidence or something, testimonies to the judge. Probably they are be innocent in.
Well, they should.
All.
I mean, obviously, this is a process. It's a civil law concept, which is a different kind of legal system than we have in the United States. But the investigative judges, of which Mr. Harman is one, are to investigate both for guilt and for innocence.
Yeah.
And they should constantly seek evidence of innocence. And there's a particular point where the accused are invited to come in and show evidence of innocence, or evidence that the charges or the allegations of guilt are false. And that's been hobbled at this point because of the government's inability and frankly unwillingness to make those arrests. And frankly, I urge the government to make those arrests. Our own Congress has passed legislation regarding our funding that requires us in the State Department to make a finding about cooperation, and at the moment that absence of cooperation is going to require us to basically state the truth to our Congress, and that could affect Congress's willingness to allow us to continue to contribute. Understand, we want the court to succeed. We want it to provide a factual basis for what happened, for the truth to be established there, for the people who bear the greatest responsibility, the leaders of democratic Kampuchea and those that are the most responsible, to be held to account based upon strong evidence, and if the evidence isn't there, for them to be acquitted. And we need that process to go forward, and we think this is an important thing not only for the history of Cambodia, so people know what happened in their own country, but it also helps establish rules and precedents for the future of Cambodian legal processes, to make sure that people can have confidence in their own system, because the people that are working in this court will go back to working in Cambodian courts. So the idea of an independent and fair process that's based upon the law, that's based upon the facts, is also important, together with establishing the truth about the period of the Khmer Rouge.
Thank you, Ambassador Rapp, that you mentioned about leaving a legacy for the court in the future. What is your last message for Cambodian victims in the United States and in Cambodia and elsewhere, 40 years after the crimes took place?
Well, first of all, it's that the American people and the administration of President Obama, together with prior administrations of the Republican Party, strongly support justice for the Cambodian people. And that involves finding the whole truth about what happened during that period, and holding responsible those individuals that led the commission of these crimes. And we've seen from our dealings with people in Cambodia and from the Cambodians who come to the court, and so far it's roughly 150,000 people have physically come to the court to watch its hearings in Trials 1 and Trial 2. And the interest is very strong among young people who weren't alive in the 1970s, because this crime, which one would have to go back. I don't know how far back in history you could go to find a crime where a quarter of the population of a country is killed, and where there's an effort to take the country back to year zero. But it's so important to establish the truth about that, and I see young people that are very excited about that occurring. But we want it to be done in a fair process that will lay the foundation for the rule of law in Cambodia when it comes to other and less significant crimes, but crimes that nonetheless need to be fought in order to have a society where people can live freely and in security.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Stephen Rapp, for allowing VOA Khmer to interview you.
Okay, enjoyed it today, Khmer.